I'm Michelle Jobes. I work at the Intramural Research Program of NIDA, National Institute on Drug Abuse. My title there is Clinical Research Specialist, so I'm an investigator, I'm a researcher, as well as doing all kinds of other things. And the software that I'm going to show you in a little bit is actually something I helped our computer team develop, and then we tested it. So my plan for today is I'm going to tell you about motivational incentives, and then go through the 7 principles of them that'll kind of guide you through how maybe you can implement them yourselves. And you also have 2 handouts that are really great that will go over a lot of things I'm going to say, so you'll have it all kind of written down. And one of the handouts actually has a series of questions for each of the principles to help guide you even further through the process of trying to do this for your own program. And then for the last half, I'm going to actually go through the software program and show you how it works. So hopefully you can take it back to your clinic, your program, put it in your computers, and then start using it. This is a 75-minute workshop. I don't want to hear myself talk for 75 minutes, so I hope you guys will talk back to me. Nobody wants to hear me talk the whole time. So who do we have in the room? How many people are counselors or social workers, actually provide treatment directly? Just want to, okay. Program directors? Who else do we have in the room? Researchers. Okay, cool. So you guys have heard a lot this morning about motivational incentives, which is also known as contingency management. Has anyone actually implemented anything like this before? Any form of motivational incentive? 1, 2, okay. So some of this will seem really familiar. Motivational incentives are based on evidence-based practice, so they're all backed by research. It's pretty much a clinical application of basic behavioral tenets. It targets specific behaviors that you see as problems and works on them in a treatment plan. And it provides incentives to reinforce the behaviors that you actually want to see in your patients. And it's a proven effective tool to enhance your treatment and facilitate recovery in your population. So I want to go through the difference between a reward and a reinforcer. They mean technically the same thing, but how you apply them can make a huge difference in your treatment population. And I think these slides are going to be available to you guys. There's a paper that I've just linked here that's a really great read. So who wants to take a stab at which of these things on this screen are a reward? Food, reward. Money could be a reward. Incentives, maybe the bigger things on there. So they can all technically be an incentive also. I'm going to go through how that could work, but you're right. Rewards would be something like pizza or donuts. They're just there when you show up to a meeting. An incentive would be a TV. No one's just going to give you a TV for showing up, but they might tell you that you could win this if you do these certain behaviors. So what about getting a draw from a fishbowl for showing up on time to your counseling appointment? Would you say that's an incentive? Definitely. A bag of candy for somebody that's been clean for a month? Or more like a reward. For some people, being clean for a month is a huge, huge goal. 12 weeks of attendance to group, a pizza party, that's definitely a reward kind of thing. Smiley face sticker for going to group. Sometimes stickers can be the biggest motivators, so it can be a huge incentive. The littlest things can make a big difference. So I just want to go through some of the differences between what a reward program is like versus what an incentive program is like. So a reward program acknowledges people for doing something, completing a significant, goal, usually a big goal like 30 days of abstinence, or sometimes just for showing up. So I think of it kind of as a continuum, and reward programs are really on either end. You get something for doing almost nothing, or you get something for completing this big, big goal. And those kinds of things tend to reward the people that are considered your best patients, the most motivated people, the people that always show up, people that are already clean, that don't really need all that help. And it often doesn't help the people that need it the most, the people that are struggling the most. And a reinforcement program is a little bit different, where it uses incentives and it breaks down those big goals into tiny steps. And it reinforces each one along the way to motivate those people that are struggling the most. Makes it really easy to learn. It's very clear, very small goals, very clear and easy to understand how I can achieve them. And it also reinforces people at a very high rate. You don't have to wait 30 days of clean urines before you get something to reinforce your good behavior. So some reward things, like where you would get a reward attending group for a long time, how would you turn that into something that can be reinforced? What would you change that to? Attending one group. So break it down really small. Reinforcing just attendance to one group can build upon itself really easily. How about finishing your GED? That would be a huge goal for some people. How would you break that down? Signing up, exactly. So having them bring in their application, submitting it with you, anything like that. Incentivize them for doing just that small step. Being employed for 30 days for some of us, hopefully we've been employed for long stretches of time, and 30 days seems like nothing. But I know for our patients, some of them haven't been employed for 10 years. And so 30 days is an eternity. So how would you change that into something you can really incentivize? Just applying for a job. So filling out an application with their counselor, or just bringing in the paper application. Being abstinent for 30, 60, 90 days, that's an easy one. Just reinforce their first drug-negative urine and keep doing it after that. So simple ways to take these big lofty goals that we have for people that we want in the end, it's their end game, and breaking it down into something manageable for them. So looking at it a different way, rewards just giving prizes for achieving a particular goal, which tend to be bigger. And a reinforcer is an incentive to motivate someone or propel them forward. So reward is more like a good job, and a reinforcer is like, that was a really great first step, and I'm going to motivate you to keep going to that final goal. And it's important to remember it's not only what you give people, but when you give it. And I'm going to go through that in more detail as we keep going. So these are the 7 principles of motivational incentives, and that's what your handout contains. It goes through each one of these, and I'm going to go through it briefly for you. But first I want to know what your broken records sound like. So what are the things you're constantly asking your people to do and they're not doing? What are the problem behaviors that you have in your clinics? Go to meetings, right. People don't like to go to group, especially if there's more than one a week that you want them to go to. It might be cocaine use. It might be benzodiazepine use. I know that we have issues with that. Anybody else have any major complaints? Bringing back things like for CBT, stuff like that. Getting people to return after their first day or week in treatment. Sometimes, people get really excited and they show up and then they stop. So figuring out what your broken record sounds like can help you determine the first principle. And that would be identifying your target behavior. What is the problem that you're trying to fix? And then that'll help you figure out what is the desired behavior. So if it's not showing up to groups, obviously the desired behavior is getting them to come. And so like I've been saying, breaking down these goals into smaller pieces, you want to set the bar really low. It may seem too low, but you got to start small. And you get those people that really are like, I can't do that. Not even going to try. You want to get rid of that whole excuse. Break it down into something really little. And if people aren't able to achieve that bar that you've set, you might need to adjust it and break it down into something even smaller. Your target behavior should be clear and focused, so it shouldn't be contingent on something else. It shouldn't be, you show up to group on time, and you're wearing green, and you smile when you walk in, and that's how you get your reinforcer. It should be, you show up to group on time, and just leave it simply like that. It also needs to be something that your patients can understand. So make sure it's in their language, it's in that's understandable to them, that's very clear, like show up on time. I think most people can get that, and maybe you need to tell them what on time means. Some people on time is 10 minutes late. If you want on time, you may need to say 12 o'clock on the dot. Make sure it's observable and measurable. So not things like self-reported drug use, because if people know they're going to get a prize, they're going to tell you, no, I didn't use any cocaine last week. So I would use something like urine results, so something that's lab tested, not something sort of out in the air. Make sure it's something that you can actually see and measure. And it should be readily detected. So if you only test urines once every couple of months, it may not be the behavior you want to work on. But if you have people that have to attend group 3 times a week, that's exactly what we're talking about, something that's frequent and that you can incentivize on a regular basis. So who in your groups need help the most? Does anyone have like a set of people that need help? Okay, so the young people. Maybe those people that are using cocaine consistently. I know there's a lot of programs in the area that if you use cocaine, you get kicked out of. So you may want to start with an incentive program to keep those people engaged at first and help them get through that so they can stay with you and get treatment for their opiate addiction. Maybe it's your staff that needs help. So maybe you want to start incentivizing your staff and then you move on to your patient populations. Figuring out who needs help the most and maybe thinking outside the box a little bit will help you decide number 2, and that's who your target population is. And so here you're going to decide, it's ideal, of course, to provide incentives or reinforcers for everybody, right? Everybody in your program. But it might not be feasible based on budget and stuff, and it may not be necessary. You might need to just work on the younger people. Maybe everybody else is doing okay. Maybe right now your patients are okay and your staff needs a little adjustment. Whatever it is, work on that little subgroup. So people that aren't responding to treatment, I give you some examples here. New patients, if they tend to show up and then leave for some reason, you might want to figure out why they're leaving and then figure out a way to incentivize them to keep coming back. You know, one popular idea is sort of to follow the 12-step program where you get a chip. If you have people that are new in your treatment, you give them a token of some sort, a t-shirt, a something, even a certificate to say, congratulations, you've completed 1 week of treatment. Something like that, and it keeps them to come back. Next, you need to choose your reinforcers. So this is a critical thing. Your reinforcer, your incentive, has to be perceived as desirable. And the more desirable it's perceived, the greater the chances that it will actually have a positive impact. There are 3 kinds of reinforcers. Access to clinic privileges, so things that you already have on site, like take-homes. So someone attends group once that weekend they get a take-home. Something like that, something that's free and already part of your structure. On-site rewards or prizes, so that would be where you have a closet or a cabinet that's full of little incentives or big incentives, depending on how big you want to go. And it's something people, once they do a desired behavior, you let them go in there and choose something. And then there's vouchers or other forms of token economy, so these vouchers are given after a desired behavior occurs, and then people choose to turn them in for goods or services. So you got to make sure that your reinforcer is desirable. You don't want to hand out pens necessarily to our population. They may not really care about pens. It may be cheap for you and you may be able to get your hands on a lot of them, but it might not be desirable enough to actually see a change in behavior. And so how do you figure that out? The best way is to just ask your patients, what will motivate you to do this little thing? And they'll tell you. They definitely will tell you. Sometimes they'll tell you, I would like a new, Xbox or something like that. But if you really get to talking to them, they'll tell you. And if you know them well, you also know the things that they talk about and things they like, and you can figure out things that would motivate them. And this, of course, will depend on the availability of your resources. So asking them and then breaking that down into things that are more manageable for your budget and what you have going on. And also, it can't hurt to reach out to the community and see if anybody has things that they can give you. You have to decide your magnitude of the incentives, and this will also depend on the cost of the items you want to provide for people and the availability of resources. This is just a note, if you're using cash, let's take the example of socks. In the study that we did, socks in the winter were a big thing, especially in our marginally housed people. A new, fresh, clean pair of socks was huge. And so we paid $1 for them at the dollar store. But if we were, and people, they came out of our closet quickly, people wanted them. But if we were to say, you can earn a pair of socks or you can earn $1, what do you think people would choose? The socks. They seem much, greater than that $1, even though that's what it cost us. So if you are going to go for cash because you kind of roll like that, make sure you realize that when you give a figure, sometimes what you can give in return, differently, is actually more valuable seeming to them. We give out gift cards that are $20. $20 is a nice amount, it makes people happy. But if you're talking about an object that's worth $1 versus $1, you see the difference. These incentives can be low or no cost, but seem like a big deal, like I was just describing. And a no-cost incentive would be something like a take-home or getting to the front of the line. We know medication lines can be long, and so sometimes people just want to jump ahead because they're in a hurry for no reason or for good reason. So things like that free things you guys can think of that you can use. And remember that using things that are thoughtful, that your clinicians put thought into, and they're specific to the patients that are going to be earning them, it can be really priceless to people. So things like socks were a big deal in the winter. Gloves also. We had one guy that loved Pop-Tarts. He had 12 kids, and so we know that he brought them home sometimes, but he loved them himself. And so he could go out and buy Pop-Tarts. They're not expensive. But when he saw the Pop-Tarts sitting in his counselor's office, and that was something he could choose to win, it felt very special to him. And when you do poll your patients and ask them, what are the kinds of things you would like, and then they end up showing up their favorite candy, their favorite book, or if they love crossword puzzles, when they see those sitting in there in the prize closet, it means a lot more to them. It means you were listening, and they're things that they want to work towards. So just some examples of low-cost incentives. Things that you can get in bulk, like those water bottles. They're cheap. You buy them in mass. In the summertime, they're great because it's hot out. We know Baltimore summers can be really brutal. And you can do something as simple as get some Raven stickers and put those on it. And, we just won a Super Bowl. People want to carry around their Ravens gear. So use that to your advantage. It's inexpensive, but, people, it's what they want. Things like lanyards we found out people really like because they can put their bus pass on them. Keeps their bus pass from getting lost. And I don't know if my patients would like little leprechaun rubber duckies, but yours might. So, you can go seasonal and see what people want. And like I mentioned, we went to the dollar store and we got a lot of stuff. We called them our small prizes. They didn't know how much they cost. They didn't know where we got them, but people really liked them. And you can get a lot of things there for $1. It's really kind of amazing when you walk through. And so things like toiletries may seem mundane to you or I, but for people that don't have soap on a regular basis, huge deal. One other thing you need to decide is the frequency in which you're going to distribute these incentives that you've now decided on. And some variables that will affect that will be your target behavior. How often do you actually see the behavior to incentivize it? Your resources, again, lots of this comes down to money, but I'm trying to show you that it can be done inexpensively. The amount of contact you have, so do you see your people once a month? Do you see them 3 times a week? That'll help you decide the frequency that you're going to use. And your reinforcement schedule is just another way of saying that frequency of distribution. So you need to decide whether you're going to reinforce behaviors all of the time or some of the time. You need to remember that the chance of winning needs to be reasonably attractive. So if you have something that looks like this, where it looks like I am never going to win any pie, I'm not even going to try. But one thing that you can institute is a primary and a secondary reinforcer. So something that would be a primary reinforcer would be the actual pie, the actual prize. But a secondary reinforcer would be using kind of a lottery system or a draw system. And so every single time they complete a behavior that you want to see, they receive a draw. And so that's really exciting to people. They rack up 20 draws, and you can tell them or not tell them the percentage of the winning. It could be 50% of the time they'll get something. But they have in their hands or on a screen, as we'll see later, a certain number of draws, and that seems really great to them. It's a chance to win something. So you can sort of reduce your cost by reducing the amount of times you actually hand over a physical item by giving something like a secondary reinforcer.
I have a quick question. Going back a little bit, I started doing a little bit with like an adolescent group, and I don't work with adolescents a whole lot, and so we started getting them like little bubble, like Spider-Man bubble things, or like, and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" And so, and you put up a lot of good ideas, but they're not really adolescent friendly.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you experience what items seem, and we of course will ask, but for you, in your experience, what item seems to be most attractive?
So I also don't work with adolescents. My population is always 18 or over. Anybody work with adolescents on a regular basis? You do.
Well, is it an iTunes download?
Oh, yes. That's
Another thing is telephone minutes.
Yep.
For their
phone minutes.
We love our resources in the room. And I'd be happy to sit and like brainstorm with you afterwards. I mean, I'm sure we could come up with. Wasn't that long ago we were there. All right. Also, you can up your ante. So You can reinforce the behavior once, or so if we're talking about draws, you can give one draw for each time they do something you want, and the second time you give them another draw, or you can escalate the schedule. So you get one draw for your first behavior, first negative urine, you get 2 draws for your second. You get 3 draws, so it builds upon itself. So, it really motivates them to keep going because, oh, if I screw up now, I'm going to lose my 5 draws for this 5th negative urine. So it keeps them going. It's important, though, that if they do fall back to that behavior you don't want, the problem behavior, that you take it away and you're not wishy-washy about it. Not like, oh, I know you've had a bad week, so I'm just going to give it to you this time. It kind of gets rid of your whole structure that you put in place. You can also include bonus draws. So it's something I'll show you in our program that we did. But you can do something like if you attend group once a week for an entire month, you're going to earn, 1 draw for that first week, 2 draws for the second week, 3 draws for the third, 4 for the fourth, and then you'll get 4 bonus draws for doing that block of 4. So you let it build on itself that way also. The timing of the incentive is really, really important. You need to provide reinforcement whenever they actually complete the target behavior. And like I said before, you have to withhold that if they go back to their problem behavior. And this sounds really easy, but how do you know when the behavior occurs? Like we already talked about, it needs to be measurable, but you also need to be recording it and keeping track of it. So if you have this great plan in place, but you're not tracking it, and so you can't incentivize people properly, they lose faith in you and your program, and they just go back to what they were doing. And so, you can create Excel sheets and all of that stuff. The great thing about the program I'm going to show you is that it tracks a lot of this for you, so we'll give you a way to have it sort of automated. Some more timing tips. Not only do you need to incentivize each time they complete a behavior, you need to do it immediately. So it should be within 24 hours, ideally. That way, keeps the faith. They know you're going to give it to them. And, in America, we're a society of instant gratification. So we need to go with that. You need to give people what you've promised them. And it's great to have the things in a designated space on site, so having prizes somewhere. And if you are doing the voucher system, at least choose maybe the services that they're going to use it for, and then give them a date. You want a gift card to Royal Farms, you got $20, you want Royal Farms, great, I'm going to go get that for you, and I will give it to you next time you see them. Hopefully it's within a couple days. So it's important to show off your goods. And so when people can see what they could win, it's a lot more reinforcing than just telling them, oh, I'll go get you a pair of gloves. But if they can see all the different things in there, they're actual objects they can work towards. So these are just 2 examples of different people's ways of doing it. I thought the Craftsman Toolbox was pretty neat, because you can close all the drawers and lock it up, and it's safe. You can also roll it from one place to another, one group meeting area to another. In our case, we had 2 counselors that had prizes for their own groups of patients, and so they just kept it in their office up on the shelf by their window, so people were always seeing what they had each appointment. And last but not least, the last principle is how long you're going to keep these incentives going. And so while it sounds great to do it forever, we know that in these budget times that it's not really possible. And you may not actually want to do that, because eventually you want your patients to internalize the recovery process, and you want them to find their own ways to incentivize themselves, so rely on themselves. So you want to do this for them forever. And so you do have to note that when you take away these incentive programs, that the effects tend to diminish. Some people will go back to their other behavior, figure out ways to motivate them. The best way is to sort of fade it out. And so you can reduce material incentives, so you get rid of the actual physical prizes you give, and you move to more socially based things. So you give them the take home. And by this point, they've probably earned more responsibility from you, so you feel safe giving them a take home. The other way you can fade it out is to increase the requirement to earn one. So whereas we started out with that very tiny goal of 1 negative urine, to fade it out, you could make it 4 negative urines in a row. And that's when they get the incentive. But you want to use that once you have a really good established behavior with somebody. So let's make it happen for everybody. And so you can do that in the DIY methods. Fishbowl, so you get a fishbowl or some other object and you put in a bunch of slips in there, and a certain percentage of them say great job, and a certain percentage of them say, you've won a small prize or a medium prize or whatever you want to do. Same thing, vouchers can be the same kind of idea, and you would track your progress in Excel sheets. The other way, you can use our ready-to-use software. So, like I promised, they'll be up here before you leave. They're here? Okay, so before you walk out, you'll get your copy. And so just a little bit of background about the software. This was something that was developed in collaboration between the intramural program where I work and the NIDA extramural program, so where all the funding for grants comes from, and SAMHSA. And Maxine collaborated with us, sat in on our meetings and helped us develop this. And so we really wanted to make something that was really easy to use, and it was intended for people and clinics that don't have the fanciest computers, that need help implementing this because it's just kind of daunting. You know, I went through 7 principles. This software kind of puts it all into one and just lets you fill out what you need. And I gave you a sheet to help you work through how to figure out exactly what you want to put in there. We tested it in our clinic. We do a lot of different things with drug-negative urines, so we focused on counseling just to not interfere with our research. And our counselors aren't the most tech-savvy people. They don't have the newest gadgets, so they were a perfect audience for us to make sure the program was user-friendly, and they did make changes for us. They got rid of a lot of right clicks. They didn't like right clicks. So we have 1 right click, I think, in the program. And so we collected pilot data on the effectiveness for us. And like I said, we worked on counseling. So we're fortunate that we have a pretty high rate attendance of counseling. We have one-on-one counseling, so people are more likely to go. And so our controls, our treatment unusual people attended 82% of the time. But the people that we put into this program that were able to win prizes significantly increased their already high rate of attendance to 91%. So we saw a great improvement. And people really, really loved the program. So the final products are user-friendly. It doesn't have a million bells and whistles, but it does do the basics, and it'll do what you need it to do. It's a standalone software, so you can take it from this little packet you're going to get, put it into your computer, and install it, and it will work on your system. That means if you do want it to be sort of clinic-wide, you'd have to decide to put it on 1 computer and have everyone use that 1 computer, or as we did on our 2 counselors' computer, and they maintained it themselves that way. And you can tailor a lot of the things in it. So the reinforcement schedule that we talked about, the target behaviors, and all the different prizes and what you call the prizes. So this is what our CD looks like from the outside. And it's in this thing on the right is what you're going to receive today, which has a lot of other information in it on motivational incentives. So how do you use this thing? So now I'm actually going to go and show you a demo. So I'm just putting up a paint screen so you don't get distracted by my background. And I have this pinned to my taskbar, but it'll just sit on your desktop. And you click on the little icon, and this is the first screen that pops up. And so let's focus first on administrative tasks. So this will help you decide your reinforcer and the magnitude of your reinforcers. So one thing to keep in mind is marketing. And when you're putting in your prizes and your prize categories, marketing can matter. So we call our prizes small, large, and jumbo. We didn't have a medium, we don't have a tiny. Jumbo is $100, which is a lot, but you could make your jumbo $20. But calling it jumbo makes it sound so much cooler, right? I mean, I would rather win a jumbo prize than even a large prize. So keep that in mind. You can name them all sorts of things. So that's one nice thing about this. You don't have to use our category names. You can use your own. And here we can add different prizes. So can someone tell me something that has popped into their head that they think their people would like? Like we could put in an iTunes gift card. So you would just go down here and click Add New Prize. And let's see. We'll give them $20 in iTunes gift cards. So you just add that. It goes into your list of inventory, and then you're going to want to add how many you've purchased. So if you're going to keep them on site already, we'll find it, and we'll say that we've already bought 2. And so those will be in our inventory. And so we add that. And so this keeps track of everything that you've purchased. And as people win them, as I'll show you in a minute, it deducts them automatically. So as long as you're diligent about adding in your inventory, it takes it out automatically for you. And you can always go in here and see how many you have. And there's some other report options also, so you can see this stuff. You can also delete prizes. If you've decided, you tried to give out Panera gift cards and nobody wanted them, you can, get rid of all of them and then delete them. So it just removes it from your inventory. Take home. So if you're in an opiate replacement therapy program, so you're getting methadone, if you're addicted to heroin or pain pills, and you're getting methadone as your treatment, a lot of clinics, you have to come in every single day to take your methadone at the window. You drink it at a medication window with nurses. And so it's a big privilege to be able to not come into clinic one day a week or more and take home a bottle of methadone and take it yourself at home. So for some of our people I know, it'll take them sometimes an hour on a bus to get to us. And we're a research treatment clinic, so 99% of them have to visit us every day, but some of them can earn take home. So it saves them 2 hours round trip, and they have their medicine at home. Okay, so draw settings. So this is figuring out your magnitude and your frequency of distribution and all that stuff. So in this program, to keep it very simple, we have 2 things that we're incentivizing people for, and that's abstinence. We have a list of drugs that I'll show you, and attendance. And so when we designed this, we were thinking attendance to one-on-one counseling or group counseling. But I also want to encourage you guys to think outside the box. And so attendance could be doing something like filling out a job application, or going to a medical appointment. So use that attendance rule to incentivize behaviors that aren't typically attendance, but are things that you want your people to do. And so this just allows you to decide whether you want to add bonus draws or not. So we have 3 bonus draws for every 3 compliant events. So every time somebody does the desired behavior, either attending something 3 times in a row, or having 3 negative urines for a specified drug 3 times in a row, they get 3 bonus draws. And then down here, reward definition tells you whether you're escalating the reward or not. So you can leave it as every single time you do a behavior, you get 1 draw. Or you can have that escalate by 1 every time. And then you can put a cap on it. If you don't want to go over 3, once a person gets to 3 times doing something in a row, they'll get 3 draws, and that 4th time they'll still get 3 draws, and the 5th time they'll still get 3 draws. So you can cap it so you don't get out of control. We have ours capped at 5 here. So that's for attendance, and then abstinence, you can do a different set of settings here. So here for abstinence we have the maximum at 10, which is kind of high, but just for example purposes we have it at 10. So if someone starts doing things repeatedly and they get to 30 times negative urine, they're still going to get 10. They just sort of keep getting 10. They cap it off at that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So you can make these very low to suit your own budget and your own needs. Security is, since we're here, is just adding logins and stuff. And in the help manual, that's probably for your IT people. It goes through all of this stuff and how you add different logins and delete people. And then we have prize categories. So like I was saying earlier, you can determine what you're going to call your different prize categories, and then here's where you determine the probability that someone will win something. So every single time in this program somebody does one of your desired behaviors, they earn a draw, period. But then you get to decide when those draws will actually result in a physical prize. And so 25% of the time for us in this situation, we have none. So they get a great job, which I'll show you. And 64% of the time, I don't remember why we have 64%, but it made sense at the time. 64% of the time they get a small prize, which for us was worth $1 to $2 that we got usually at a dollar store. We didn't even do the medium thing. We went right to large. Large for us was $20. 10% of the time people would earn that. And then jumbo for us was actually $100. And that was usually 5 different $20 gift cards. We let them pick which 5 they wanted. So this thing won't let you put a probability over 100%, so it kind of makes that a little foolproof. You can't end up with 101%, for example. But you can change these. So if you update it, you can change the none category to 20% and then update somewhere else that other 5% you've removed. All right, so we're going to close this now and look at, actually, we're going to admit a new patient, I think. So who wants to be my patient? Come on. Okay, what's your first name? What is it?
Diane.
Diane. Diane, what's your favorite food?
Seafood.
Okay, your name. You guys, this will make sense in a second. D-I-A-N-E, 1 N? Okay. Diane Seafood. Okay. I love food. So, all right, I've added Diane Seafood. And Diane, I'm going to go up to patient now. And we could put in all of Diane's info. So Diane could live at 5 Crab Claw Lane in Baltimore. You put in her zip code. You can put in all this other stuff, all the demographics info that you want. You don't have to put any of this in. You do have to do the stuff that's in red with the asterisk, but you don't have to fill out the rest of this if you don't want. But you can if it helps you. Contact information for her, and you can save that. So now she's in there with a little bit of info about her. We'll close it. And Diane, what would you like your target drug to be? As your counselor, I would probably help you work on this, but since we just met. Okay, so we're going to add nicotine. So it's best to select only one drug. And so you can select more than one here, but we recommend that you only select one. And research has shown that if you work on just one drug, the other problem areas can also be affected by your working on just one thing. So we're going to leave Diane with her target drug as nicotine. And if we look at status, for example, this just tells me that she's active in the program, that I admitted her today, and that today is her first day. And I can make her inactive if she leaves the clinic, or we've decided to work on a different population, so we're done incentivizing the smokers, for example. Okay, and now we're going to add an appointment for Diane. And we're going to make it for today. I'm going to make it before now just so I can illustrate what I want. So you can pick, the little calendar will pop up and help you go back and forth, so it's easy. You don't have to actually know what day of the week these things are on, you just look at the calendar. So we're going to pick today, and you put in the hour and the minutes. These are in 15-minute increment, or I'm sorry, 5-minute increments. So now she has an appointment here. And so we can, this is our one right click in the program. We can right click here, cancel her appointment. We can reschedule it. If she calls me and says, I'm going to be late and it's too late for you to see her, you can reschedule this. And you can add draws here. So I'm going to show you how she can earn them the regular way, the way the program is designed. But if you need to add draws, like you've decided to do a one-time incentive for her for, say, filling out a job application, and she does it, at this appointment you can go in and add draws for her. I'm going to select it. Let's update her first. So let's say we're doing smoking for her, so we're going to use one of those breathalyzer or CO monitors, I'm sorry, that we heard about earlier today. And she shows up with a very low carbon monoxide reading, so it seems like she's not smoking. And so we'll make her not abstinent, or I'm sorry, abstinent, good girl. And we'll save that. And so now she's earned one draw. I don't know if you guys saw it pop up down here. She's earned one draw. And if I wanted to add more, because she brought in a filled out job application, we can put that in here. And so you put in your justification, and this is saved for you, so you're not just sort of adding things willy-nilly. This helps you keep track of why you're adding these extra things if you choose to do so. So now she has 2 draws. And so now is where you let her take over. So this is where it gets fun for the patient. And she gets to click on the 2 unused draws. And it tells her she has 2 draws available. Click the draw button to find out if you win a prize. And so we're going to draw. This is all Diane doing this. So she gets to watch the coin flip. And you won a prize on your first try. Congratulations. All right, she has 1 more draw, so we're going to let her do that one. Whoa, look at you! So you won something in the large category. I'm going to do another patient I already have some stuff in here for, so we can see when they don't win a prize what happens. And so now she has 2 unclaimed prizes. We're going to let her click on that. And it shows her what she's already won, and it'll remind you when she won it, but you should be doing this right away. This should happen immediately after she wins them. And so when we click on small, it's going to show her everything that we have in our inventory that's considered a small prize. So what would you like to win? We have toothbrush, toothpaste, socks, coffee. Coffee sounds good. So she's going to select coffee. That is now deleted from our screen up here, and it's deleted from the inventory. So that's how that works. You don't have to worry about it. She picked it, and it's gone. So it just deletes one coffee from however many we had there. And if she had chosen the last coffee, for example, it won't show up for the next person. So now coffee won't even show up as something. So you don't want to promise something that you don't have on hand. So it gets rid of that. So our large prize, she's going to choose that now too. Here I have go to the front of the line. Go to the front of the line might not be large for your population. Maybe it's jumbo. Depends on how impatient they may be. It may be a small prize. So you need to put it wherever it needs to go. But maybe she wants one of those newly added iTunes gift cards. So we'll take that. And so she's done. So now I would take her to our little prize closet. Or if it's in my office, we would fetch her prizes and she would walk out a happy camper. And so when our patients did this, depending on how much stuff they had, because you'll see how people can accrue a lot of draws. You saw our escalation schedule, and that max was 10, so people could get a lot. They would walk out with shopping bags full of little goodies, and people loved it. And so some of our people that weren't attending their counseling, they were like, look at all that stuff I could win. I'm going to go. And so it really reinforced other people just seeing people walk around with stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to show you why I named you Diane Seafood. So I have all my patient lists, and all my patient list is comprised of people with food names. So I had to keep you in line with them. Let's look at, I think, my Tom Tomato. We'll scroll down, find him. We're going to open him. He has 10 unused draws, so I was a bad clinician, and I didn't let him use his draws, but I did that for you guys. And we're going to see if, actually, to show his appointments. We're going to see if he can show you the other varieties that we have here. So this is also a good time for me to show you. These are all of his appointments. So it only shows you a week's worth as the default, but if you click show all appointments, you can see that I put him in back in December. And so these are all of his appointments that he's kept ever since December. So you can see what he's actually been up to. So we're going to do his unused draws until I at least get a no prize. There we go. Good job. No prize this time. Keep trying. So this is your opportunity as a practitioner to reinforce that they had done something really great to earn that draw, but maybe next time they'll actually win a prize. And so this guy has even more draws, so we could keep going with him, see what happens. But it's your chance to reinforce the positive thing that they already did, even though they're not winning a prize. So he happens to get that twice in a row. Unclaimed prizes, so again, just to show you, he had already won a bunch that I hadn't let him choose yet. They all happen to be small. And so he can just go through and keep choosing. And like I said, if something ends up running out, it'll be deleted and you don't need to worry about him thinking he's going to get something that's not in the room. So for him, we can look at his demographics. I didn't give him much in there to show you guys. His target drug, he doesn't have one, so for him, I'm really just focused on attendance to counseling. And let's see, his status, he's been active in this program for 169 days. Hopefully, if you have somebody in there that long, they have more appointments than this, but all right, now I'm going to show you some of the reports. Does anyone have any questions so far about how you do?
So the program doesn't specify a duration of the intervention.
No,
right?
no. The other thing to note is that, yeah, we don't have a stop on it. You decide the stop. And the schedule and stuff that you put in is effective for all people that you have in here. So you can make people inactive, say, if you're done using them in this specific program. And you can leave them because they're still in your clinic. They're just not using this program.
Now, would you advise them that people determine a duration before they start with somebody, or?
So I think you can do it either way. You can predetermine and say, we're going to do this for 3 months or a month. There are also people that will sort of make it a little more fluid, and depending on what your target behaviors are, you may want to keep it that way, but it's probably simpler for you if you decide on an end game. And that way, the expectation is out there up front for the patients and for you, how long you're going to be working on that specific set of behaviors or that specific population.
So I totally agree that it's important to specify up front, let people know what you're thinking in terms of duration. But another way to think of it is that we're going to keep doing this until you achieve a certain goal. So like let's say, I don't know, 8 weeks of good attendance or a certain amount of time of abstinence, that would be a way of individualizing it to the person and making sure that they get a lot of good behavior time under their belt, as it were.
Yep. So that's the other side of that coin, to make it fluid. You do it based on
Their behavior.
their end game that you want to see for them. Yeah. Thank you, Maxine.
So would it be possible, like for example, at the program where I work, we sort of would have like two different fish bowls, one for an adolescent IOP and one for a research study. Does this program allow you to have two basically entirely different pots of fish bowl? Like, you know, one is a larger one, it's got research funding,
Yeah.
and one is smaller.
So it does not. So that was one thing I was going to mention, is that this is sort of an all or nothing thing.
So you could, I guess, run it on two different computers. Or
Yes, exactly. So you could have one fishbowl. You don't even actually need the fishbowl, but you could have one sort of prize closet with those, you know, research-funded prizes here with this computer, and then put
But
the
you
other
would
one.
have to be on separate
Would be on
computers.
separate computers.
See, like, separate files.
I don't think actually that you could put this on a computer twice,
Okay.
because it looks the same.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's one of the drawbacks, depending on how you look at it. We wanted to keep it really simple. But you could do exactly what you're saying. It's just have two separate computers, and they won't talk to each other. So it'll be separate, and so you can do it that way.
So let
Great
me make
point.
sure I understand. You can't, those parameters that you put in at the very beginning apply to everybody.
Apply to
who's
everybody.
currently in your caseload.
Yes. So that's why you need to decide on your target population, and that's what you're working with in here. So to keep it straight, if you make somebody inactive, they're no longer that population you're looking at. But everybody that's in there and active is all using the same set of parameters you put in.
And is it possible to do attendance and abstinence, or is it one or the
You
other?
can do both. Yes. So if you are working on attendance to group and abstinence, so attendance to group could be 3 times a week, and your abstinence, maybe if you check once a month, you can do them both at separate appointments or at the same appointment. The program will keep track.
But everybody has to do the same thing.
But everybody has to do the same thing. Yes.
So you can have more than one. You can have 3 of them. For example, if I'm working with in drug court with 18 to 24-year-olds, and they have up to 18 months or 3 years to complete the program. So, but if I say I got just 10 of them, can they have more than just one? Like going to their PO and meeting all of those meetings for 30 days. Can all of them say to 10?
So the way I would say to do that, if it was, you know, 2 different kinds of meetings, I would say set in here your escalation and your whole set of parameters for attending those regular meetings, and let the program do that. Then if you have other kinds of meetings that happen on a less frequent basis that are, you know, a bigger deal, maybe meeting with the PO, maybe actually going back to court to see the judge, whatever it may be, that I would say you need to keep track of separately. But that's where you can do that one right click that we allow, where you can add those extra draws. So that way it still comes out of your inventory and is tracked that way, and you actually can put a note in that says met with, you know, did that extra whatever that kind of meeting is. But you have to make sure that you keep a diligent list of, you know, what that other thing is and how many draws they earned for it, so it's consistent.
So then the program won't actually let you change the target behavior. So the target
You can
behavior
get rid of, you can take in and out. Counseling or attendance is just whether you attend or not. It's not ever included in the target behavior. It just is there to use if you choose to or not choose to. I should show you another.
So the question is, could you take the one that's
you
the
change
goal
it?
that says abstinence and rename it?
Right, right.
Attend PO.
So you can't.
No.
So the word abstinence is stuck in there.
Stuck in there.
Just like the word attendance is
So there's no
stuck
way
in
to
there.
change the condition.
No.
The
So
program.
those 2 names, those 2 labels are there. And that's what I was saying. You can think of attendance a different way, but it's still going to read attendance.
So then I'm thinking about how to apply this to, like, say, a group of 100 patients. They essentially divide into subgroups, but you've got 100 kids who come to treatment every evening. How are you going to make this work? If they're going to be there for 2 hours, it's going to take 2 hours for them to, you know, draw and do the coin flip and see it work and get their prizes.
So that, you're right. That would be a challenge if you really have that many people.
Is there anything you know of that would serve that function? I mean, this is great for, you know, individual patients who come in, but I'm thinking for 20 people and for a group of like an hour, you're gonna spend 15 minutes doing this.
Yeah.
Alone.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can get them to stay after the hour groups, you're not taking away from that to do these incentive things. Hopefully, if you've designed it right, they won't mind staying. For groups of 200, though, that's going to be a challenge. Yeah, I think no matter how you do this. If you're using something like this, I mean, it's very quick to navigate, to change patients and do it. But I mean, it is built in place that you're going to watch the coin flip, which does take up a little bit of time.
If you click on their name, like some kind of, you know, cling, cling, cling goes in the bottom or something, and then they get to hear their reward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I just have another question. So what about, is this program usable with, say, like, what if you, in an instance like that, if you have 5 different groups going on with 20 people each, could you use a physical fishbowl and then just sort of keep your inventory? Is it usable like that? Like just using the program to keep inventory, but actually using physical fishbowl for choosing?
You could use it that way. If you just go into the inventory, you are able to add and subtract. Yeah. The only thing you couldn't do is go into, I'm going to show you in a little bit, the reports that you can get, and so you can see how many times, say, Tom Tomato won a small prize, a large prize, and the dates that all of that happened. You won't be able to add that in.
You can't go to the individual patient
And add a prize size or, no.
Okay.
Yeah. You can add draws, but the draws are sort of built in based on your percentages. But if you wanted to ignore all that, you could just go to the inventory, add it, subtract it as you need to, and keep it separate, you know. So here, these are the 2 static things, abstinence and attendance. And so just as Maxine was asking, you could do both, attended and not abstinent, or abstinent, and let it do both. And it'll add in appropriate things here. All right, now I'm going to show you, this is your schedule for the week. Well, actually, this shows you 3 days. And if you want to see, say, for the past month and a half, you can look at what's already happened. You can also make this a date in the future and see all of your upcoming appointments, so it keeps track of things like that for you. And then I'm going to show you the reports. So prize inventory summary is in here. All these reports can be printed or exported into Excel, a PDF, or a Word document. So this tells you all the different prizes that you have, what you've called them, what category you've placed in them, and then what your current list of inventory is. So if you want to use the program like you were saying, this is something where you could print it out, and so you know at the end of group what you have, and you can keep track, and then go back in later and delete things, but at least you know what you have on hand. This is your inventory distribution. This just tells you what you've given out. This is your treatment plan patients. So these are all the people that you have active. So if you're working on just a certain subpopulation, these are all the people that you have active currently. And then if you switch to another one, you would get a different list once you change their active status. Event outcome percentage by patient. So we can say, if we're just looking at attendance, we'll put that in there, and we want to see all the people that have attended, not attended, or not applicable, meaning you didn't reinforce attendance if you want to see that for some reason. So if we're looking at all the people that actually attended their appointments, we'll get this, and it gives you their percentage of attending. So all of the times that they had the opportunity, how many times they actually showed. And again, you can put this in Excel and then manipulate it how you need to. If you want to combine reports or something, you can do that. Count by category and patient for the prizes. So this just tells you how many times Tina Basil, for example, got lucky winning a jumbo prize. She's only won one. How many times Adam Minato has won a small, 4, etc. Result counts by patient. So this goes through the 2 different categories that we have, the abstinence and the attendance. And this tells you how many times they were abstinent. Incomplete means that I did not fill it out for some reason. Not abstinent means not abstinent. And not applicable means I didn't actually choose something for an appointment. So the incomplete is actually an appointment that I didn't for some reason update. Not applicable is where we didn't actually look at that behavior at that appointment. And then same thing over here for attendance, it does the same. And then lastly, this is just a check on, so you put in percentages, what percentage people should win nothing versus what the percentage is people should win a jumbo. So this is just checking on your percentage. So we validated this in our setting to make sure that the inner workings of this calculate the way they should. But this is just a visual reminder of what you're actually getting as an output. And so those are all the reports that are available in here. And again, if you want to, you can export them into Excel and then copy and paste and do what you need to do with them. And that's pretty much, I think, all I'm going to show you in here. So like I said, it doesn't have a million bells and whistles, but it does a lot of really basic things and a lot of basic tracking for you, and it can get you started into a program that maybe you don't already have in place, because it may seem a little daunting to track all those things. So I hope that you guys will at least go play with it in your own clinics. I'll give you does anyone have any final questions?
Why did you say that you should only put one group rather than 2 or 3?
So research has shown that it's just easier for people to wrap their brain around working on one thing at a time. It's easier for you, it's easier for them. If you tell them to earn something, you need to be cocaine negative, heroin negative, and benzo negative, it can seem like too much for them to work on. And so if you start with just one, just cocaine negative, a lot of times you'll see the other drugs and the other negative behaviors follow suit. You want to add to it?
But one way that we often do it in the research programs is to target their primary drug, why it's the thing that brought them to treatment, and that's the thing that they're earning the escalating draws for. But then in that extra feature where you can put in bonus draws, you can give them bonus draws for being negative for everything, or for other drugs that are particularly important.
So like if you're in a treatment program that primarily focuses on opiate addiction, that would be your primary drug for them. But if you're also in a place where they can't use cocaine or else you kick them out of the program, that's where you might want to add in the secondary stuff for them. So when they're cocaine negative, you're adding in.
Or in that case, you might want to make cocaine the
Or
primary.
you might want to switch it if it's really that dire.
If they're going to get kicked out for using it, then that sounds like a reasonable
Yep.
But it may depend on the patient, too, which is why it's nice to be able to have the individualized goal for each patient.
And you can change that goal for the patient. So I initially put in nicotine for Diane, but say she's worked on that and we feel like she's doing great and we want to switch to something else, or something else just ends up taking precedence. Something else takes off for her that's worse. We can get rid of nicotine and add something else in, so you can switch it for her.
Right. Or you may, speaking of smaller steps, you may want to start with attendance, especially for patients who are actively using drugs when they come into the program. Those are the toughest ones to deal with. Start with attendance, get them involved, get them engaged, and then switch to abstinence as the goal. So there's a lot of ways to individualize the programs.
Any other questions? Yeah.
This you provide for us today, does that have more than one application, or once you download on one computer, that's it?
No, so you can put the same disk in more than one computer.
Okay.
So if you have like 3 computers you want to put it on, you're able to just keep doing it.
Okay.
Yep. I know I've put this on this computer and another computer, and I've done it on 3 different computers myself.
So you could have a separate computer for each group.
Yep. If need be, yep. So that you can change the parameters for how you want to incentivize.
That would be one way of breaking down this volume issue that someone brought up. So you have a separate computer
have a lot of
for each
computers.
group, and that reduces the number of people that have to interact with it.
Yeah, if you have 5 staff members, 5 computers, let them all go to town. The only thing is your inventory is tracked on individual computers. They don't talk together that way, so you have to be a little leery that way. So say you have 20 of one item and you have 5 computers, you might want to just put 4 and 4 and 4, just to sort of minimize the likelihood someone's going to win something that, oh no, so-and-so got the last one, So I just want to leave you with my contact information so that you can email me. And while I'm not the techie person that wrote this program, he works upstairs from me. And so, let's see. So you can contact me, and if you're having any trouble with installation or anything like that, I can put you in touch with him. If you have any other questions about how to implement it or how to use it, feel free to email me. I'd be happy to, we can talk on the phone, whatever we need to do. Once your computer's once the program's installed for you, you know, I can pull up mine and we can walk through it. Oh, you know what? Real quick, I'm sorry. One thing I wanted to show you is the really cool help feature that's in here. So you get an entire document if you're, you know, a visual person that likes to read, actually read. You can pull up documentation and it'll give you an entire PDF of how these things work, how to install it, etc. But there's a really cool help feature. So if you have a question about how to manage your patients, you open up this and say you just can't remember how to add a new patient. You click on that and it actually flashes what you need to flash. So it shows you how to do that. And so if I need to open a profile of a different patient, it's going to flash where you need to click. So it kind of makes it a no-brainer that way. Whatever you're looking to do, it makes it highlight for you so you find it quickly.